Hi guys, Sunshine Squirrel here. Welcome back to my channel if you're a returning viewer, and welcome to my channel if this is your first time. I'm a recent veterinary school graduate that loves animals and all things Disney, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you guys some tips and tricks to maximize your experience on Disney's newest attraction, Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run, and Galaxy's Edge. So Millennium Falcon, this new attraction, is really more of an experience. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced at Disney, and I think that it will be probably the first attraction of its type that you've experienced as well. And what makes this attraction so unique and so different is that you get to decide how your experience on this ride goes. From talking to a cast member, basically for this ride, it can last 30 minutes or it can last up to 2 minutes. And I'll explain how it all works. So basically, the whole premise of this ride is that you and 5 other passengers are supposed to be inside the Millennium Falcon. It's being loaned by Chewbacca, and basically you're working for a guy who basically steals power cells, which is like energy source or like petrol, and he steals them from the Empire, but he uses them for his own selfish purposes. But in stealing the power cells, he also helps the rebellion. So that's just a little backstory on the ride. And basically your job is to steal these power cells. You want to steal as many as you can, because the more power cells you steal, the more payment that you'll receive at the end of the attraction. So one of the unique things about this attraction is that you are assigned a specific role amongst the 6 people. And so amongst 6 people, you're basically loaded into this area that's supposed to look like the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. And each of you has a specific role. And basically, there are 3 different roles and 2 passengers, which in each of the 6 have the same role. So the 3 roles are pilot, gunner, and engineer. And we'll talk about all of those roles now. So pilot. So this role basically is exactly how it sounds. You're basically flying the plane. Now, amongst pilot, there is left-sided pilot and right-sided pilot. If you're the left-sided pilot, you move the ship to the left and to the right. If you're the right-sided pilot, you move the plane up and down. The left-sided pilot also hits the boosters and helps to get the plane to initially take off. You also are responsible for hitting the brake, which is really important in the ride. Spoiler alert. And if you're the right-sided pilot, you get to put the plane into light speed. Now, the pilot role is probably the most desired role, I would say, probably out of the other two roles. However, I will say that it is a very fun role, but it's very challenging. I had the opportunity to be the left-sided pilot, and the left-sided pilot is the most challenging of all the roles because when you're on this attraction, you have to fly the plane through a lot of really narrow passages, and you have to navigate around asteroids and different things like that. And a lot of the movements are more left to right than up and down. So if you want to have more of an engaging ride, I guess I would say, and if you want to be really kind of in charge of helping your team do the best that they can, then the left-sided pilot is the role for you. I will say that I probably wouldn't recommend the pilot role for younger passengers, just because it is a lot of pressure, because you're responsible for steering the ship, and basically at the end of the ride, you get a score, and your whole team kind of gets a score for accuracy. And if the pilots don't steer the plane right, and if they're crashing the plane everywhere, then your ride will end sooner than 2 minutes, which is the maximum length of the ride, and your final score at the end of the ride won't be that high. Now, does your final score count for anything in reality? No. But it may be a lot of pressure for a younger child. But if you've always dreamt about flying the Millennium Falcon or feeling like you're driving the plane, then this is definitely the role for you. I will say with this role, though, like I said, it's probably one of the most important roles because you are steering the ship and you really do have to be focused and paying attention the entire time the attraction is going on. Now, the second role is gunner. Basically, gunner, this role is in charge of shooting any enemy ships as well as shooting harpoons to help grab the power cells. Now, in gunner, there's two different modes, so you can have it set for automatic or manual. If you have it set for automatic, you don't have to aim the guns, you just have to press the fire button. If you have it set to manual, you have to line up the guns on the target and also shoot them. I think gunner is a great role for someone that wants to feel like they're a part of the action, but at the same time doesn't want all of the pressure that the pilots have. I think this would be a great role for kids, especially if you put it in the automatic role. It makes it really easy for them. All they have to do is shoot. And then the final role is engineer. So for the engineers, anytime there's any damage to the ship, or if there's any maintenance that needs to be done, as well as harpooning the power cells, the engineers are basically in charge of pushing different buttons that cause the ship to be fixed or help to shoot out the harpoons. This is probably, I would say, one of the easier roles, or I would probably argue the easiest role on the ship. So if you really want to be able to just kind of sit back, watch the ride, enjoy it, this is a great role. I think this is an absolutely fantastic role, especially for children, because there's not a lot of responsibility on them. And I think that even though there's not, I guess you could say, a lot of action or a lot of responsibility that you have in this role, I think it's kind of nice because you kind of can more of enjoy the ride. Now, I will say the one disadvantage to being the engineer is that the way the cockpit is set up for this ride, the pilots are basically two seats in the very front of the plane. Right behind the pilots is the gunners, and then finally the engineers. So if you are an engineer, it's going to be kind of harder for you to see, and you're going to be in the very back of like the ride. So that part of it is not as great. However, I will say this, that no matter which role you end up having, you're going to have a really great time. Now, when we rode the ride, we rode during one of the annual pass holder preview days, and the cast members basically just gave us cards to assign us our roles. We were a group of 4, and so the cast member basically just gave the 2 of us that were sitting in the front pilot, then the 2 behind us the gunner, and then they put a party of 2 with us, and they were the engineers. So if you are a party of 4, you are going to have 2 strangers with you. The only way to have the ride kind of, I guess you could say, all to yourself or all to your party is to be a party of 6. We didn't have any issues with being with other people. It was fine. And we, had a good time. So a couple of tips or tricks I would give you guys. If you are in the pilot role, I will say, make sure to constantly be paying attention. Basically, as soon as the ride begins, that's when you have to start steering the plane. We had the opportunity to ride the attraction twice, and I will say by the second time, I was a pilot for a second time, and I improved a lot. So this is definitely one of those attractions that if you have the opportunity to ride it a couple of times or multiple times, you're going to get better at it because you're going to have a sense of kind of how it works and how the plane moves. I will say that the steering is very, very sensitive, so even just slight moves are really exaggerated. So I think that's what part of makes the pilot role a little bit challenging, but it's a lot of fun. At the end of the day, if I had to pick any role again, I would pick pilot again. I loved being able to be in one of the first chair that was in the plane, and I really liked being able to feel like I was helping my team and steering us, and it was really exciting. Now, I will say that if you are someone that doesn't like motion, or you're prone to motion sickness or something like that, you're probably not going to like this ride. It's kind of like Star Tours in the sense that you're buckled into a chair and you're moving around, but you're also looking out at a screen. And what I really love about this ride is it's kind of like Pandora in that you really feel Pandora's Flight of Passage, you really feel like you're there, but there are no 3D glasses, but it looks 3D. And I really, really, really liked that part. So if you're someone that wears glasses and you hate having to put 3D glasses over your glasses, you're going to love this ride because you're going to get that same effect of things right in front of you, coming at you, without having to wear glasses. I have a feeling that this type of attraction is going to be the way that Disney kind of goes, and kind of having these virtual rides that feel like you're really there, and look like you're there, because it's an absolutely amazing experience. Now, I didn't have any footage of the actual ride because I wanted to be able to experience it. And with being the pilot and being in the front row, I didn't want to be rude to the other passengers behind me. But take my word for it, guys. If you go to Galaxy's Edge, you absolutely have to ride this ride. Whether you have a standby or whether you have a fast pass, it's completely worth the wait. You will not be disappointed. And I will say that this ride as well has the best queue line in all of Walt Disney World. Even though you're in queue and you're waiting, there's so many things to look at, and there's sounds and there's smells and everything. You don't even realize that you're in line anymore. One of the cool things as well about this queue line is Disney kind of has this like alien type language that they've made up, and they have all of these hidden messages throughout the ride on the different walls. And so using your decoder map that you get for the land, you can decode all the messages. And my sister and I worked on decoding a lot of them while we were standing in line, but we couldn't decode them all because there were just so many. So that's a great thing to keep your kids entertained. There's different stuff in the queue line that moves around as well, so it's really cool. And one of the best things about the queue line is that there's kind of like a little pre-show, and in the pre-show they have this animatronic that looks ridiculously real. When I first saw it, I honestly thought it was a real person that was just in a costume, but it's not. So Disney definitely went all out on this queue. I feel like the ride is even worth it just for the queue line. And if you would like to see the entire queue line from beginning to end, there will be a link in the upper right corner of this video that you can click on. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you've experienced this attraction, what your thoughts were, and what role you had. I would love to hear it. Until next time, have a fantastic week. Bye!